Am I on?
You're
You
on.
are. How are you, Ben?
I'm good, thank you. You?
We're good. We're good, man. Just here discussing the Antonio Tarver rant. Have you heard it, or should I play it back so you could get it word for word?
Play it, and I'll listen.
I gotcha. One segundo.
How is everything?
And I'm playing in
Oh,
now.
Some flack for that. It's his responsibility too to have his fighter ready. Man, he had nothing about no defense, no head movement, no feints. Didn't have his hands up, feet all everywhere, bruh. Where's the lessons? As trainers of the year and all this stuff, but we don't. What are we? Come on, bruh. This man wasn't prepared for no Terrence Bud Crawford tonight, and the trainer got to take some flack for that. It's his responsibility too to have his fighter ready. Man, he had nothing about no defense, no head movement, no feints. Didn't have his hands up, feet all everywhere, bruh. Where's the lessons?
So what do you think, Ben?
I think it's difficult having a solid. We can have assumptions, but I think it's difficult to have a solid opinion on situations like this because none of us was in camp. None of us watched the preparation. None of us know what Derek James's game plan was. None of us know whether that was a case of Spence not listening to certain things he was asking him to do. We don't know if it was what he was asking him to do. So it's hard to really have a factual opinion on, how much of a blame the coach gets on on a performance, really, unless we spent time around it and around them in camp and know what it is that the coach was asking the fighter to do.
How do you think a rematch plays out, Ben? Is it worth it? I mean,
at
personally,
154.
I've
Do you
never
want to know the
seen.
truth? I
Yes.
think I think there's been a little bit of talk about Spence maybe struggling at the weight. My personal opinion was that at the press conference the day before, I personally felt Crawford looked even worse than Spence in terms of making the weight. I thought he looked drier. I thought he looked more drawn. And I've been in the gym with Terence, and he's a lot bigger than what people assume him to be because he's the one that come up from 140. I think people assume him to be a lot smaller than what he is, but he's really filled out, grown into the weight, and I do imagine it's just as hard, if not, by my opinion, from the looks of things, harder for him to make 147. So I don't think, in terms of people talking about the weight and it being at a different weight, having a different outcome, I don't see that, to be honest.
Would you say that, from your opinion, that was Crawford's best performance? In my eyes, I've never
Yeah,
seen him look that sharp.
yeah, I agree. I think when I was looking at the fight, I thought if Terence was to get pushed around the ring, it would probably be because he's constantly trying to open up the distance, switching too often. I know that can be a strength of his, but I thought against someone like Spence, if he's switching too often, that could lead to him getting pushed around the ring. He didn't switch once throughout the fight. I thought he looked very settled. I thought we saw a little bit of that when he boxed David Avanesian. And to be honest with you, I think he's still an improving fighter at 35 years old.
Mm. Ben, do you recommend Earl Spence fight again this year?
I don't know, like I said, I haven't spent time with him in camp. I don't know where he's at. I don't know where he's at physically. I don't know where he's at mentally. Um, so I'm probably not, you know, I'm probably not qualified enough. I know everybody wants to listen to people's opinions and that, but the reality is, I'm probably not qualified enough to make that call on whether I think Spence should box again this year or not. There'll be people that are closer to him that will know more about that. Like I heard you guys talking about this Anthony Joshua fight week next week. I'm sure there'll be some questions and some media work that
Yep.
Derek James will be doing, and I'm sure those questions will be asked next week.
How do you think that's going to play with Joshua Psyche? He went to a dominant trainer, expecting to be, in a camp that's a winning camp, and all of a sudden the biggest name in that camp takes a loss a week before his fight. Is that going to do something to his mindset?
To be honest, he's an experienced guy, isn't he? He's a two-time unified heavyweight champion of the world. So I think that as much as he would be supporting his stablemate, I think that his focus would be solely on his fight and what he needs to do in his fight.
I'm jumping all over the place here, but because you trained Josh Taylor, and we seen what T.O. did, and now this is 2 times. We didn't think he would do that with Loma. He turned around and then again beats another former undisputed champ as an underdog. Can T.O. move up, activate his WBO status, and fight Terrence Crawford at 147 and be competitive, if not win, in your opinion?
I used to train Josh Taylor, that's right. Do I think, and Josh is a physical guy at 140, so the fact that there was times where Teofimo was getting the better of the physicality in that fight, you know, I was shocked to see that, to be honest. But do I think he could move up to 147 and challenge with Crawford? Difficult task, if I'm being honest. You know, as I mentioned earlier, I've seen Terrence in the gym, and I think that people underestimate the size of him for 147. I think that he's grown into the weight, and you know, T.O.'s just moved up to 140. I think that if he was to move up another weight class, he'd probably not want to go for someone on the bigger side of that weight class to start off with and get a feel for it, because he's only just moved up to 140 as well.
Ben, I want to ask, who do you think then possesses like a realistic option to give Crawford a challenge? You know, Jerron Boutennis is 31-0, but he's never fought for a world title. It seems like Crawford may go up to 154, but Jermell Charlo is caught up with Canelo. Who do you think is the best option for Crawford and the most competitive
Yeah,
one?
Jamel is moving up, but I've seen that the WBO have said that they will
Strip
him. So with the WBO, from my understanding, is if you're the champion at the weight below, you can apply to become mandatory instantly when you move up in weight. So I think that he could end up boxing for the. Potentially, yeah. From my understanding, that would be the fight if that was the route that they went down. In terms of 147, the biggest challenge, you'd have to say Jaron Ennis. Huge mega fan of Ennis. It is a massive leap for him to take. I think, unfortunately for Ennis, he's in a position where the guys that are, I know Sean Porter's retired now, but the likes of the Sean Porters of the division, maybe former world champions, etc., they're not looking at Ennis and thinking, what a great fight for me to take, you know? So that's probably the type of fight that Ennis would need or would like before taking a challenge like Crawford. Whether he will get that or not, I don't know. But, you know, every challenger at some point, there's always that question of can they do it at the next level? And that'll only get answered once they step up. And it is a big step for Ennis, but he's a special talent as well.
We've seen plenty of Hall of Famers, legendary fighters go up in weight. Am I crazy for assuming that Gervonta Davis could compete with Crawford? I'm not saying he wins. I'm just saying because of the power, they both started at lower weight classes.
Crawford started at 35 and Tank started at
30
26 or
26.
30. And just, you know, because I was waiting for a time to jump in because I wanted to use the Duran comparison is what I've been using. I don't know how much you know about Duran, but he started at 130, moved up to 47, beat an undefeated Ray Leonard. Ray Leonard was a natural welterweight where Crawford is not a natural welterweight. Has he filled into the division and become one? Yes, but he started at 35. Tank has, if anybody could be compared to Tank, in my opinion, it would be Duran. I mean, Duran, if anybody can compare to Duran, it would be Tank because of the power in both hands, how short he is, how explosive, even some of the outside parallels with the women and the alcohol. Ben, what do you know about Duran? What do you know about Duran? And can Tank be this generation's Duran?
Um, Potentially, yeah. I mean, I think the thing with Tank is it would be more so the right style for him to go to 147. I think somebody that's a pressure fighter, that's rugged, that's tough, that can absorb the shots, not going to have too much respect for his power, that he's going to be able to close the gap, be a bit physical with him. He's probably going to have more trouble with somebody like that than he would do somebody that's an intelligent boxer, can recognize, you know, a threat, somebody being showing a bit of danger, somebody setting something up, because he'll earn it, even though he would be coming up from 35. I know he's won a title, a version of a title at 140 as well. I think that a fighter with a good IQ is going to recognise, Tank's very good at disguising his shots and setting shots up and misdirecting his shots, and that'll buy him space and buy him time. And I believe that he certainly punches hard enough to have an effect on guys at 147 as well. So, do I think he could be competitive in that division? For sure. Ryan recently moved up to 140. We saw his performance against Barrios, who was a big 140. But to be honest with you, I think anybody right now, barring Ennis at the minute at 147's, got their work. Even Ennis has got his work cut out with Crawford at 147 at the minute.
So Ben, my last one, and then I'll pass you over to Danny. Obviously, we've seen common opponent in Gamboa with Tank and Crawford. I know it's a long time ago, but Gamboa gave Crawford problems. Obviously, he's a different fighter. He's more developed. He's more experienced. He's been in 18 world title fights, but the shorter man gave him issues. Tank, again, having that parallel to Gamboa and those uppercuts. He's been deadly throughout his career with uppercuts. And that isn't, as a trainer, isn't it easier for the shorter man to land an uppercut on the taller man?
Depends on the tendencies of him. Crawford actually uses a lot more of the shoulder roll now than he would have used to, or especially he did the other night. He's an improved fighter. I think that's such a long time ago that you'd be looking at that sort of looking at the comparison of those fights. I remember going into this Spence fight, everybody was going on about comparing the two Sean Porter performances. I think that you'd have to look at the style matchup directly between the two as opposed to common opponents. I think that's where a lot of mistakes get made in terms of how anticipating a fight would go.
Ben,
Styles make fights, as they say.
definitely do. Um, Lastly for me, or last two things for me. Obviously you've worked with Devin. He's announced he's moving up to 140 pounds. Will face WBC champion Regis Prograis. Your thoughts on the move up and the potential fight with Teofimo, which I know that was a topic of conversation even back when you were in the camp.
Yeah, Devon's been, it's been tough for Devon to make 135 for years now. So um, it's no shock that he's been looking to make that move up. Obviously, the opportunity come up to become undisputed, and he wanted to do that and achieve that. He then had the opportunity to make a huge mega fight with Lomachenko, and you have to credit him for choosing to take that fight as well. Opportunity comes up now where he can become a two-weight world champion, and he's looking to do that. So I think it's a good fight. I think it's a good fight for Devin. I think it's a good fight in general for the public, the boxing fans, and yeah, intriguing.
How do you see it play out? You said intriguing. How do you see it play out?
I think I don't want to say too much because obviously we still do bits of work with Devin. So I think it would be wrong to talk too much on the fight.
I got you. I got you. Well, obviously, you have prepared a fighter, a world champion, and been successful against Regis Prograis in the past. What would you?
I didn't train Josh for that fight.
Oh, not for that
Josh
one.
trained with another trainer.
Oh,
No,
sorry about
before
that.
Josh was training
Okay.
somewhere else before. That's all right.
And last thing for me, it's been announced October 7th in Sheffield, Lee Wood, Josh Warrington. That should be a banger. Talk to us about the fight.
Yeah, it's not going to be anything but an absolute barnstormer, as we say over here. So, you know, Josh brings high volume. Always, always brings it. Lee, big puncher, huge puncher. Both. Sometimes I think fighters, both have got huge fan bases, right? So sometimes I think the atmosphere can get to a fighter and it can have a negative impact on fighters. However, I think the intriguing thing about this fight is both of these guys thrive off of those atmospheres, and the fact that the arena is being segregated into two parts, half Warrington, half
Whoa,
Wood.
That's dope.
Yeah,
I
what
love
yeah.
that.
is it more of a safety concern?
Well, they've both got huge football fan bases, so I think one, it's a they want for safety, and they want everybody to have a clean, enjoyable night. And secondly, I just think it will cause a bit of, you know, I think it will create an even more special atmosphere where
Absolutely.
both fan bases are going to want to outdo one another. So I think the atmosphere is going to be electric, and like I said, I think both fighters thrive off of that. So I just can't see it being anything. But to be honest with you, you might as well give the pair of them fight of the year already.
Super duper last one, Ben, because I feel like I would be irresponsible.
Right, you've been said, but all of you have been saying that for the last 10 months.
Is that I feel like I would be irresponsible if I don't ask you, have you already been studying Inoue for Lee Wood? Because you know he's coming up. You know he's coming up.
I haven't, no. To be honest with you, you know, 120, Lee's now 35. He was 35 the other day. 126 is difficult for Lee to make. So this could potentially be Lee Wood's last fight at featherweight. He may be looking to move up himself. But I've got a funny story, actually. So Lee previously went over to Japan to spar with Inoue.
No
and,
way!
Inoue's brother. Yeah, that's right. Quite a few years ago. And so Lee got in the ring on the first day of sparring and was sparring Inoue's brother. Apologies, but I forget his name. And Lee actually dropped him. Then the next day, Lee thought he was sparring the same brother again, and he said, you know, something just seemed different. And Inouye had obviously jumped in to spar with Lee because of what had happened the day before.
Oh,
and then
he came to defend his brother.
Yeah. Yeah.
How did that go?
Yeah, good. Lee said it was brilliant sparring, you know, but Inoue recently done an interview and they said, you know, you sparred so many different fighters. Has anybody ever stood out? And Inoue did an interview and said, out of all the people that I've ever sparred, you know, Lee Wood sticks in my mind, you know, the power was crazy. So, yeah. Maybe one day it might happen, but yeah, there's a chance that this is Lee's last fight at 126 pounds.
That's a pretty amazing story. Listen, man.
Right, boys, it's been a pleasure, but I've got...
All right, no worries.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you. What a treat, man. Thank you. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. That was trainer Ben Davison live on the show.
Like button, subscribe to the YouTube channel, help us get to that 1 million subscribers. We're on the road to 1 million, and obviously we have other great content on our Patreon channel. So since this video is over, head on over to our Patreon and check out all the exclusive content, or right here on our YouTube members.